A lot of what I do is trying to manage a pretty unhealthy art form. There's nothing mentally healthy about going in front of a bunch of strangers and being like, here are my ideas, do you like them? No? Silence? Okay, I'll just scream in the shower a week from now thinking about it.
Wire sat down with comedian Josh Johnson to discuss comedy in the age of TikTok. This is The Big Interview. Break down the anatomy of a Josh Johnson joke for me. Like, take me through sort of, does it have a specific structure or arc?
Before I do that, is it weird what I'm doing with my hands? Because I look like a tiny villain. People will watch this and be like, what was he doing? Okay, this feels good. All right. I'm also gonna keep my elbow on the table like I'm telling you secrets,
Okay.
You know?
I mean, it's just us talking.
All right, so the anatomy of one of my jokes, okay. I think that for the most part, what I try to do is look at whether it's a specific topic in the news or it's something that I feel very strongly about. I think about sort of the angles that maybe the audience is coming from, and then I try to think of all of the holes in my logic or the traps that I could fall into. You know that little game, sometimes you win it at like the fair where it has the holes in it and there's a little ball that you're trying to get through a maze to the other side. That's what I would describe as one of my jokes. And the ball doesn't always make it to the other side. Sometimes I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's my bad. And so I think that that's the best way I can put it. Like as an example, right? I watched the Olympics and I even did a set on the Australian breakdancer, right?
She was dressed like she was from Squid Game. That's when I was like, I don't know if you're taking this serious. I don't know what's about to happen right now.
Because there was a lot of motions, there were a lot of movements that I had never seen before. And I've been alive for a while. And so I was like, that's some real creativity, but also, is it just bad, right? Because it's being like universally panned as like, that was horrible.
The judges awarded her 0 points, and I didn't know that was possible.
And so you also try to think of what's the subversive take. Was it horrible? Is there a way that I can prove it wasn't horrible? Because now we're already having an interesting conversation, right? Now I did fall in the camp that it was horrible, so I didn't do that at all.
I think a lot of us were there.
Yeah, but then there are so many other angles to think about with it of like, okay, we can joke about this person's performance, you can try to clown this person, but every country has to send a representative or two. So then this person beat other dancers.
Who did she beat to?
And so what were they dancing like? I think using that curiosity to ask more questions and think of different angles, you know, because maybe if Australia had a better immigration policy, there would have been some more black people in Australia to be like, hey, don't. And I'm not even saying you have to open your borders. 3 extra black people could have prevented a nationwide disaster, right?
And there was a black dude in the background that was like,
So basically, I think that we are all here at one time and we might all witness the same thing. Yeah. Some people are gonna find that event funny. Some people are gonna find it potentially tragic. Some people might be annoyed by it after they hear about it for the second time. So the fact that we can all take different responses away from one event and the fact that there's no one way to feel about anything is a sort of diamond of takes and different angles that you can approach something from. So I try to do that with every joke and every story.
Yeah, it seems like in watching and doing a lot of research for this interview, going through your TikToks, I was noticing this there's this overarching macro joke, but then there's sort of all these interior moments within it that you try to hit.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really sort of revelatory in that way.
That's the intention, and sometimes they're not there. Sometimes it's like, look, I just find this one thing funny and that's it. I think that I'm finding my way of communicating with the audience and perspective through trying to hit as many angles as possible for one specific thing.
Is that overwhelming?
Yeah, it may not even be healthy. I think that for the most part, a lot of what I do is like trying to manage what is probably a pretty unhealthy art form.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing mentally healthy about going in front of a bunch of strangers at once and trying to get them to like you. That screams everything I think a psychologist would speak against. You know what I mean? Like, it's just walking out and being like, here are my ideas. Do you like them? No? You told me no with your silence? Okay, I'll just stay up here, continue talking. You don't like what I'm saying. And then I'll just file that in my cabinet in the back of the mind so I scream in the shower a week from now thinking about it. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of it is overwhelming. But like I said, I think that for so long I was doing jokes and I was writing and I was trying to engage with people and nobody really knew or cared. And so I'd much rather have the pressure and the sort of overwhelming aspect than to just be throwing jokes into the abyss, you know?
If we can, a little bit pivoting and talk about sort of the social media of it all. I'm curious, how has social media changed your relationship to comedy?
I don't know if it has. Two really big problems that people have, not just comedians, but just people in general with social, is that one, it either feels like a living, breathing thing, or two, you feel like it's your friend. And if it's either one of those things to you, it can betray you very easily. If Instagram is supposed to be your friend and it's how you get a lot of your dopamine and it's just a great experience every time, then everyone sort of trashing you on Instagram, or people not liking what you post, or people not even responding to what you post, not caring at all. I think that that can take a toll on a person's mental health. And so I think that the way that I try to not let it affect my relationship with comedy is that I'm doing comedy for the people that come to the show. It's a relationship between me and the people that come to the show. I then share it with people who weren't at the show. But if they weren't at the show, they might not have the same feeling as the people that were there. You know how sometimes you'll go to a concert and people have their phone and they're recording the concert? And everyone makes the joke that they're not gonna watch that later, so just watch the concert. But I have watched that on someone else's phone. And when they were showing me the concert on the phone, I was like, must have been nice, because I'm not getting anything out of this right now. Like, this is your shaky hand moving, and you swear that it's Kendrick. I can hear a Kendrick song, but I can also hear you going, ah! Like, so it's like, what is this supposed to be for me, right? But I think comedy is my relation to the people that are here right now. And then posting to social is my relation to people who I hope will come to a show one day and who I think will enjoy these jokes that I may not do again, which is another reason why I post, right? Because I'm not trying to do the identical set over and over. So when I'm done with a joke, why not share it? Why not share it with people who I believe will enjoy it? It's either that or less people get to see it for the end of time. Like, it's just a joke that I sort of like take to the grave outside of me and the people that went to the show, you know?
So no identical sets ever?
Not as far as last year. I definitely, when I was getting ready for specials in the past, would do the same set leading up to make sure that the performance of the special was as like tight as it could be. People talk a lot about crowd work in comedy now and everything. And I think one of the reasons that crowd work does so well is because for the people who are at the show, you're making them part of the show and you're bringing them into an experience that they won't forget, because it's a singular moment where they were part of the show and you're giving them a turn, right?
Your videos sort of run counter to how we consume social media. They often run 4 to 5 minutes long, which feels like a lifetime on TikTok sometimes.
Yeah, I'm pretty long-winded.
Why do you think they found such an audience in the way that they have?
I think that anything that you find interesting, there are people like you out in the world. And so I actually think it's a really like refreshing reminder that we're not alone. I think length is not the real issue. I think it's just general interest. And I won't be talking about things that are interesting to everybody all the time, but I think that when you find genuine interest and enthusiasm in something, you can bring people into it because they're like, oh, I don't know about this. Maybe I will be interested in it. And so I also think it's indicative of the fact that when you put things out and you're not putting them out for some result, you're putting them out because you hope that people will enjoy them, right? Whether they get 1 view or they get 1 million views, the length is the length for a reason. And I'm doing my best to connect with people who find joy in what I do. And so I'm glad that it's worked out. And my hope is obviously when I put things out that people will watch them. I can't hold too much attachment to the outcome. Obviously, I'll notice if tomorrow everything gets 1 view. I'd be like, is that just my mom then? Is just mama watching now? Because even I should be a view. So the fact that it's 1 view and not 2, we must be doing poorly. But at the same time, I put it out for people to enjoy. And if no one enjoyed it, then that's my bad. But as long as they are, I hope to continue making things for them to enjoy.
So talk to me a bit about being a comedian online today. You're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, on YouTube. What's your sort of strategy for social output?
I think the general strategy is to, share the sort of like more topical thoughts of either the day or the week or the big event.
Okay.
And then break them into as many different pieces as possible, because I think that everyone's gonna consume differently. And I think that obviously certain things will do well on a platform that won't do as well on another. You might see something that's posted to YouTube and it does well, right? And then maybe it even does well with YouTube Shorts when you break it into pieces or something. But then you post it to like Twitter and it doesn't do well at all. And you're like, yes, there wasn't enough hate. I should have rage baited more if I wanted to get a real result. You know what I mean?
Twitter's the real test.
But I think that just because one thing does something somewhere, you can't expect it across the board. And then also, I think that in order to sustain myself and keep creating things that people enjoy, I have to release attachment from how things are going to go on social. So it's like I post to share. But, I look at sharing as the way you'd share anything physical. I think that the digital and the physical are the same, right? I might want to share with you a peanut butter and pickle sandwich. And you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm good, right? I'm all right, you know what I mean? And I think that sometimes jokes work the same way. And so I think that, you obviously try to lean to your strengths on every platform, and if something works, you're probably going to lean into the way that you did it last time, and if it doesn't work, that's how you learn and stuff. So I think that as far as like an editing or maybe this thumbnail is a good structure or whatever, but I don't think that for me as like a comic, I can put too much weight on exactly how things are going online, because once again, the show that I'm making is for the people that come.
So you don't read the comments online at all about your...
No, I read the comments, and I think that, the comments are important because my director, when I've done specials and stuff like that, he directed my Peacock special and everything. His name's Jacob Menacci, and he and I read the comments with different context, right? So I read the comments to see if people like the jokes, right? And sometimes it's good because then someone will be like, come to this place. And then if I'm coming, obviously you can put like, hey, I'll be there at this date, whatever, right? But the way that Jacob put it was, there's nothing in film that gives the instant feedback that YouTube gives. With film, you have a movie, and you shoot it, you do all the stuff for a movie. You cast it, you have everybody shoot it, you do the post-production, everything, you wrap it up, you send it off, the studio likes it, you put it out, then you do press and everything, and then the press is a lead up of anticipation, excitement for the movie. The movie comes out, right? People go and see the movie, but you still have to wait for the box office, you still have to wait for the reviews, you still have to wait for all this different feedback for a thing that's an idea that you had a long time ago that you created, that you watched come to life. Whereas with YouTube, the second you post, somebody could be like, sucks, it's bad. You obviously have to take all of it with a grain of salt, because whether it's actually bad, whether it is categorically bad, whether I put out a set that is the comedy equivalent of the Aussie breakdancer, or if I put out a set that's like, people love it and they think it's amazing or whatever, they'll tell me, and they'll tell me now. I'll know immediately. Learning to discern what's just general feedback and general love or hate, because I don't think you can lean too much into either. I think either breed a sort of delusion of yourself, one negative and one positive. I think that the overall feedback is what lets you know you're on the right track.
Building on that, and then and the sort of final question, is it weird being a comedian in the age of social media? You know, it almost seems like you have to have different instincts to succeed today. Everything is magnified. Everyone's competing for everyone else's attention, even if you aren't a comedian, right? Everybody's sort of chasing trends. You brought up crowd work. You're seeing that a lot now on social media and TikTok and Instagram. I'm wondering how is sort of your relationship within all of this?
I just think there are different opportunities, you know? I think that for every era of comedy, it has been difficult. And I think that for every era of comedy, there have been people who, through whatever that status quo way of coming up, came up first and are kind of the reason that you do some of these things.
Okay.
So back in the day when Johnny Carson was hosting The Tonight Show, you get a Carson set, you do really well, Carson invites you over to the couch, he's talking to you, now all of a sudden you get free airtime on top of your set. People would be set for the year as far as touring went, right? And then Carson leaves The Tonight Show and now people are like, oh, what do we do? How are we gonna sell our tickets? What's next, right? And then you had people that still kept to late night, but then you had people that were doing sort of subversive things. Oh, I'm gonna tape my own special, put it out on VHS and just mail it to a bunch of networks and see if one of them likes it. Maybe one of them likes it. Then getting a special, you know? And we're talking like a couple decades removed from each other, but like then getting a special was the way to like set yourself up for the whole year, touring tickets and stuff like that. Every form to get people to buy tickets will change, and the through line of all of it is that you're a comedian doing comedy. And as long as you're doing that and you're doing it for the people who show up, you're gonna grow. It's not as if all of this like incredible success is inevitable, but I think a general success at doing comedy is inevitable.
Yeah.
If you are a painter, if you're a writer, if you're a dancer, if you're an actor, there are more accessible ways through the internet than ever before. I know that means that the barrier to entry is lower than ever, so then there's
crowded,
more to, but I think that quality isn't crowded. I think if you continuously provide quality for people, not only will you stand out, but I think opportunities will come. And I think that, you know, people talk about networking stuff, but if you build friendships with other people who produce quality, there's no way that you won't succeed. I want to make quality for the people that come to the show, and I want everyone else that I share it with to enjoy it. But people sort of lose their minds over like, well, can we get to 10 million? Can we get to 1 billion? Can we get to whatever? It's like, that stuff will either come or it won't. There's no way to guarantee it, and there's no strategy good enough to guarantee it.
But I mean, it is healthy to set goals for yourself when you're sort of setting out at the beginning of it, and you should have sort of benchmarks, right?
Yeah, but I think those benchmarks, anything that is not up to you, in my opinion, shouldn't be a goal. Anything that all I can control is, did the people coming to the show have a phenomenal time? Is this maybe the best comedy show they've ever been to? And if somebody tells me that after the show, this is a good example of a goal to me. So yeah, there are goals and there are benchmarks, but all the goals, all the benchmarks have to be things that you yourself can produce, right? Yeah. I want to win all these awards. Those are clearly not up to me. You know what I mean? I want a lot of things. I want to be your size. When I met you, I was like, man, if I were your size, I'd be a problem. I wouldn't be polite at all. If I was your size, everyone would know what I think about them. You know what
I mean, if I was as funny as you, I'm sure I'd be a problem too.
Maybe, but if we switched for a day, ooh, you would get a call from me, be like, listen, I got locked up. It's not even my fault, okay?
Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you for the big interview.
Thank you.
This has been great.
Yeah. Great to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this.